G'day everyone, Artist Wayne here. Now I've taken on some pretty crazy builds before, but this might actually be my biggest challenge yet. Because what I'm about to attempt is easily the most ambitious thing I've ever tried to 3D print. We're talking detail, precision, and way more complicated than anything that has come before it. And if I can pull this off, this will be something special. So, what is it? One of the most iconic racing cars of all time, the Ford GT40MK1. Famous for its unmistakable light blue and orange livery, and for dominating the 24 Hours of Le Mans, winning back-to-back victories in 1968 and 69. A rare feat for a single chassis. A machine that didn't just race, it made history. And now, I'm going to try and bring it back to life. So, armed with my trusty Prusa Mach 4S, I decided to do things a little differently this time. After 3 big builds under my belt, I've learned a lot. I started this print yesterday at 1:30 PM. It is now 10 AM the next day. And as you can see, we are 44% into this print. When I started my very first project, the Mad Max 2 Interceptor, I quickly discovered not all filaments are created equal. But now I'm finding out the exact same thing applies to 3D model files. Thursday morning, and we are almost at 95%. Now, with all the models I've used in the past, you're usually looking at anywhere between 100 to 200 separate files. But this Ford GT40MK1 model came in at just 17 files, which means every single part is big, and all the detail is already built into each piece. For example, the entire cockpit and the roof, that's all one print. Something I definitely wasn't used to. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I printed everything. Well, almost everything. Because when you're printing parts this big, if something goes wrong, it goes very wrong. Which brings us to one of the biggest parts of the entire build, the rear section of the Ford GT40MK1. Because this part didn't print properly. And this wasn't just a quick print, this thing took a day and a half. So, as I started stripping away all the support material from this piece, I quickly realised something wasn't right. And after a day and a half of printing, that hurt. And it definitely had me wondering, is this whole thing going to be a complete waste of time? It took me a while to figure out exactly what had gone wrong, but in the end, I jumped into Prusa Slicer and repaired all the open edges on the model. At least that was the plan. So I sent it back to the printer, crossed my fingers, and hoped that would be enough. Thankfully, my second attempt came out a lot better. Not perfect, there was still a few issues here and there, but this I could work with. And after what I'd just been through, I was very happy to take that. So, with the majority of my 1/8 scale Ford GT40MK1 now printed, the real work was about to begin. There's something strangely therapeutic about stripping away all that support material and finally revealing the part underneath. So the plan from here was to clean up every single piece and then get stuck into the real work. Filling, sanding and smoothing out any imperfections. Because when it comes to the body of this car, it has to be perfect. And to help things along, I picked up a little weapon that I'm hoping makes this whole process a lot easier. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of sanding ahead. Now, because all of the fine detail is built directly into each part, it's going to make the painting side of things a lot more challenging. But I've got to admit, I'm actually really looking forward to that, because already I've got a few ideas on how I'm going to tackle this and bring this whole thing to life. Because if I can pull this off, this car is going to look incredible. But if I want the body of this car to be perfect, it's going to take a serious amount of time and a lot of work, because I've worked with parts in the past that were a lot worse than this, usually thanks to the filament I was using at the time. But this print, it's not without its own problems. So as I start getting everything ready for paint, I'm going to have to take my time and get this right. Because with a build like this, there's no shortcuts. So, once all the support material was cleaned off, I finally got a really good look at the model itself. Now don't get me wrong, there's a lot to like here. The level of detail in some of these parts is actually really impressive. But it's not all good news. When it comes to any kind of curves or flowing shapes, you can see straight away there just aren't enough faces in the model. So instead of nice smooth lines, you end up with these slightly faceted surfaces. And with a car like the GT40MK1, that's a big problem. Because this thing is all about smooth curves and clean body lines, which means for me, a lot more sanding. And let's be honest, I don't like unnecessary hard work. And there was one more issue I had to deal with, the cockpit. It just wouldn't fit on my Prusa's heat bed, so the only option was to break it down and print it in sections. Once the lower part was done, I could finally start bringing it all together and see if this whole thing actually fits the way it's supposed to. Because at this point, nothing would surprise me. So with all of this work ahead of me, I knew one thing for sure. I had a lot of sanding to do. It was now time to unveil my new weapon. Now the big question was this the silver bullet I'd been looking for? Well, not exactly. To be honest, it wasn't quite as good as I was hoping. But even so, this thing was still going to save me a huge amount of time. Well, that's after sanding 10 minutes. I was hoping this would be the magic bullet, but I'm just going to have to get it as best I can and then use the wood putty as bog. But at least I won't need much. Just keep it very, very thin. Unfortunately, my lower cockpit section had failed. The filament had unravelled on the spool, jammed itself up, and brought the whole print to a stop. But there was no way I was starting this thing again from scratch. So instead, I decided to pick things up right where the print had stopped. A little bit of slicing and dicing in Prusa Slicer should hopefully do the trick. Because if there's one thing I hate, it's wasting time reprinting parts. Right, I have just finished printing this because it didn't work. So now I need to get these two pieces together, this piece glued onto there, where it goes, and this piece. Get all of this together. That's my job. Major update, major update. Need to get the suspension to fit. Need to sand and fix up all of these exhaust manifolds and extractors. you can see I'm absolutely destroying all of this so I can get the rear part of the body to fit. That's got to fit perfectly. And so I'm going to need to sand all of these air vents down. Lots and lots and lots of work. The seats don't fit. Plus, I will need to make, using 3D Studio Max, the fuel cap, all the lights, the rear lights, the spotlights, the headlights. I've got clear filament for that. The doors don't quite fit, so they'll need to be, they almost fit. I'll just need to be sanded slightly. Yeah, I'll need to make the seat belt, the racing harness for the seats, put a gear knob in. Lots and lots and lots of work to do.
Now, because hardly anything on this model actually fit together properly, this is where my new rotary tool really came into its own. And let's just say, I absolutely massacred some of these parts just to get everything fitting the way it was supposed to. I had gone from precision engineering to full backyard surgery.
I have cut the absolute shit out of this motor to make it fit and sit where it is supposed to, or roughly where it's supposed to. So I'm going to have to glue that in before I even paint anything.
Now, when it comes to model building, I usually like to plan ahead. I like to think through each stage, work out how everything's going to fit together, and especially how I'm going to paint the model. But sometimes plans change, and that's exactly what was happening here. Instead of worrying about the painting side of things right now, I decided to start gluing the major sections together first, and figure out how I was going to paint it later.
Big update. Nothing's glued in, but I am getting the suspension set.
But before I could set up the suspension and start gluing everything into place, there was one thing I needed to check first. I needed to see how the wheels actually fit. Because with a car like the Ford GT40MK1, stance is everything.
Big update. I am doing a lot of sanding. The pieces are quite good. Really getting there with this one. Need to put a lot of detail in this engine bay. What I've got is, when the rear of the car body goes on, that's what you'll see. That's all going to be glued into place, so it'll just be what you see through the window. I need to make radiator grills. Need to put the mounts in here. I need to make all of that. Started printing the tyres. The wheels didn't fit. I had to cut the tyre, cut the back of the wheel off, so that'll have to be put into place. I had to grind some of the discs so that the wheel and tyre sits in the right place. So that's going to be a little bit tricky. But basically that's all you'll see. You'll be looking down on the model and you'll see all the detail in here, so that'll all be painted. The seats need to be heated up. I'll have to squash these in a little so that they fit. I found a racing harness that I can print that was free on the internet. I had to cut the crap out of this part, the nose of the car. That fits now. I had to cut the crap out of the motor to get that to fit, but that fits now. And what I'll do is I'll just print another one of these out. I don't even know where I got this from, probably from the Halo model. Print another one of those out and glue that in there. That'll look nice and neat. There's no way I'm going to get this totally smooth. The boot lid or the
bonnet lid. So I'll start puttying that, but I won't need much at all. Get this roof sanded, and then I'll start undercoating. And get the sky blue paint on. Then I'll have to mask it up for the orange stripes. I don't know how I'm going to do the pinstripe yet. The doors need sanding. I had to cut the rear of the car, totally destroy it. Nothing fit. Big job. Huge job. Well, I must admit, seeing this car finally coming together is pretty exciting. And yes, I have a whole lot of hard work ahead of me. Gaps to fill, bodywork to smooth out, and apparently a whole lot more cutting than what I was planning on. But hey, it's all part of the fun. And even though this build has already thrown a few surprises at me, I reckon this car is going to turn out to be something pretty special. So I hope you've enjoyed episode 1 of my Ford GT40 MK1 3D car build. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons, and I'll see you all in the next one. I'm artist Wayne Dowsett, and thanks for watching, everyone.